Hello campers and welcome to this next choice board video. This time we're talking about Google Sheets, and this is the first video on our choice board. And this one we're going to cover some spreadsheet vocabulary. Now if you are like me, Google Sheets is probably the most intimidating of the Google tools, just because if you are not familiar with spreadsheets in general, it's a lot of lingo and new tools and toolbars and menus and submenus. It can be very overwhelming. And if you're not working with spreadsheets regularly, it's even more of an Achilles heel, just because you don't know how any of it works. But I will say, over the years, I've learned to just push buttons and see what they do, as well as be able to Google things and watch YouTube videos and figure some things out pretty easily when you get past that initial fear. So that's kind of the purpose of this video, is just to kind of show you around a little bit in spreadsheets if you're brand new to them. You may look at this automatically and be like, oh yeah, I could do that with my eyes closed. You are probably a Sheets guru and you probably don't need this video, so that's okay. But what we've created here, if you click on the resources link underneath the link that you got to this video with, you'll be able to make your own copy of this template that we made. And it's just going with the Harry Potter theme here. We made a Hogwarts school data template. And so I've got a typical class roster here. This class is for Defense Against the Dark Arts. We've got the Hogwarts house with some searchable menus here. We've got their Hogwarts ID, their names. But we've got some assignments and some grades, and we've got some percentages going on, as well as letter grades. So this is something that you would typically see as a use case for Google Sheets in the elementary or in the educational field, if you will. But we're going to look at just the menus basically to see if we can help you get past some of that fear of, I don't know what that is, I don't know what that does. All right, probably the most important tool that a lot of people don't know about, and we talked about this a little bit in Docs, but the Paint Format tool is an awesome little time saver, so that when you get something formatted just the way that you want, and then you want other pieces of the puzzle to match that same format, that's where this Paint Format roller comes in. So I kind of already got this one set up for you guys, but if you don't remember hearing about that from the Google Docs or even Google Slides choice boards, it's definitely worth going back and looking at. But again, just saves you time for not having to manually update the formatting of different things. So if I have, for example, this is bold text, it's centered in the cell as well. If I want other things to be the same, let's just see if this will work for me here. So if I do click on what I like, the formatting that I want to copy essentially, and then I hit the Paint Format tool, and then let's say I click on column E's heading here, you'll see that now it matches the same boldness as I had here in column A. So again, not a huge earth-shattering thing, but it does save you some time instead of having to go and click those features and those formatting items for each thing. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't even know is there. They just kind of ignore it. If they're in this neck of the woods, they're clicking on the print button. All right, as we go scroll through here, we've got the zoom tool, which is good for those people that need to see it a little bigger, just because the size of the screen may not be very conducive to seeing every little detail. So you can zoom in to make the text and font a little bigger. But let's look at this next chunk here between the thin lines. So you see a $, percentage, and then decimal increase or decrease, and then what kind of format do you want the numbers to be in. So these are all for numerical data. So if you are working with numbers like we are with the point mark values of these assignments, this is where you would basically say a certain range of cells needs to be formatted as currency, as percentages, or if you have different percentages. So when I enter these grades, these mock grades here, you'll actually see that, that I actually went to the 1,000th place in the decimal just so we could show this little feature here. And you'll notice that kind of throws off the grades because it's not rounding anymore. It's keeping the full 3 decimal places. But if I bump that back to none, it will round it off as opposed to keeping that whole decimal. So it just depends on the type of numerical data that you're working with. If you do need to kind of crop those and round them off, that's a great way to do that. And then when I did the grade column here, I have a formula going on that's taking the sum of all of these assignments and then dividing it by the sum total points of all these assignments to get a percentage. But what it did was it gave it as a decimal. I just highlighted that whole column and said, no, I want it to be a percent. So I selected that, and now I have my percents here. Okay. So that's all the numerical data formatting tools. Where it says default, that's your font. So if you wanted to change it from that default Arial, you can do that there. Next, you have your font size, as well as if you wanted to bold, italicize, strike through, or change the text color, as well as the background fill color of the cell. Beyond that, if you wanted to mess with the borders to have some darker than others or different colors, that's where you would do this. And then if you wanted to merge a couple different cells, that's right next door. You'll see I've got 2 rows here. 1 and 2 have been merged for column E through L, just so I have more space to see all of the text there. And then the next little bracket, if you will, is formatting your text so that it fits and is readable within the cell. So the first thing I like to do is select all of that text that I'm going to use and say, yeah, I want it centered as far as alignment of the text. And then I also want it centered maybe in the space of the cell. So it's not all just in the bottom or in the top, but it's in the center there. And then I also like text wrapping. So typically when you first type in something that's longer than the little cell will allow, it just kind of cuts off the text. So in order to read it, I like to do the text wrapping and do this center one here so that it all fits nicely within the cell. And I did want to basically show you a time lapse of me creating this sheet so you can kind of see all the little bells and whistles, ins and outs, but obviously that would have been a very, very long video, which is what this one is already tending to be here. So I'm going to try to wrap this up soon. And then this next one is text rotation. So if you wanted your text to kind of go a different direction, if you're trying to fit things a certain way so that you can see as much data as possible without a lot of lateral scrolling, that can help as well, especially if it's headings of different rows or columns. That can be a different option for you. And then next, if I wanted to link any text, so let's say I had a prompt for each of these assignments and I wanted to link those just to remind myself. However, if students were to see this sheet in view only in order to see their grades, that might be a different story, but I don't know, you probably don't want them seeing each other's ID numbers and all that good stuff. So this is more just for my own bookkeeping, record keeping here. But if I wanted to link it to the Google Classroom assignment, I would just select that cell and hit the link, and then I would get the link to the classroom assignment and paste it there. So that's what that button does there. Next is if I wanted to insert a comment on any cell. So I first have to select a cell first, hit that comment button, and then I can tag people with the @. So if I wanted Mark to take a look at this assignment, I could tag him there if I wanted to, or just make a comment in general to anybody else that has edit access to the spreadsheet. And then last 2 ones here, we have a filter where you can create different ways to view the data, especially if you are sharing this sheet with other teachers. For example, in this case, if we were different Hogwarts professors, chances are we'd want to take a look in at our house students to see how they're doing, to see if we need to offer them extra tutoring or whatnot. So I might, if I'm Ravenclaw, want to sort all of the students so that I'm only looking at Ravenclaw, but I can't hide the rest of the students because the other teachers would need to see that too. So I could go in and create a filter so that I'm only looking at my students without bothering anybody else's access to the data. And then last but not least, this is one we probably use the most in Sheets, and that is the functions tool. This is where you can go in and put in these little codes as part of your formulas, and Mark will be talking about that in a later video. Another thing that you may hear, especially on previous Google tests, certification tests, especially when they had scenario-based questions. And the buzzword for Sheets was always pivot table. So if you are unaware of what a pivot table is, you can select a range of data, and then you would go to Insert Pivot Table, and basically it just pops out a nice visual little table that you can put inside of another sheet or another tab in your same sheet here. And then anytime you change the data, it will automatically update in that table. And it just makes it easier to present the data with a specific trend or focus that you want to look at. So if you've heard that before, that's where that is found. You can always just Google it too. And I think we have it in our skill sheet as well. So if that were to come up on the test, you could easily look that up pretty quick. All right. Now, hopefully I made it a little easier for you to dip your toe into Google Sheets. Hopefully you made a copy of this and you can just kind of play around with it, see what you can do, act like this is your grade book, and push buttons. If you are even more scared of Sheets, I apologize. We'll try to win you over in the next couple videos as well. All right, we'll see you.